Welcome to episode 5. It's all about traction. We are starting our series on the Western Railway Museum.
We've also got some news on the big boy, as well as some other items, plus some of our favorite finds.
This is Railroad Showcase. The Western Railway Museum is located on Highway 12 between Fairfield and Rio Vista in California. It is one of the premier electric railway museums in the West, and it has about 100 pieces of equipment. The focus of the collection is the Sacramento Northern, the Key System, and Muni of San Francisco. But there's also equipment from the Western Pacific and other railways thrown in for good measure. So, as the story goes, the founding organization, the Bay Area Electric Railway Association, started as a group of guys right after the war ended. In 1946, they chartered a run on the old Key System 271 car. And they were on this ride, and up to this point, they were a group of guys who got together socially, they showed slides and movies and went on excursions, and that was what the organization was. But as they were taking this ride on Key System 271, the car, it was already 45 years old at this time, and it was about to be scrapped. Just a few weeks later, it was going to go to the torch. And they didn't want to see that happen, so they literally dug into their pockets, passed the hat, and all of a sudden now their organization was equipment owning. For the next 15 years, they kept adding more and more equipment. And by 1960 or the late 50s, they realized that they were going to have a permanent place to store this equipment. And they bought 22 acres at Rio Vista Junction in 1960, and this was on the Sacramento Northern main line. By the 90s, UP owned that main line. In 1993, it donated 22 miles of the right-of-way, and at this point, 5 of those miles has been rebuilt and re-electrified. Hunter Lohse, film archivist for the museum, takes us on a very knowledgeable tour of the facility.
Okay, so this building that we're standing in front of right now is the original Greyhound bus station for Rio Vista Junction. This was where the Sacramento Northern trains would come in, and the average speed through here was about 60 miles an hour. And the passengers would transfer here to either go to a Greyhound bus that would go to Rio Vista or Ileton. And also, too, you will see a heart-shaped plaque here, and there's still a red light there in this building. So this is probably the most important building on the property. This is the Del Paso Substation. It's one of 3 substations that we have on the property. This takes about 3,000 volts AC and converts it to 600 volts DC to charge the wire. This is the Del Paso Substation building that came out from the Sacramento area along the Sacramento Northern. But the electrical equipment in here is actually from the BART test track in the 1970s. The electrical equipment from the original Del Paso substation is at Orange Empire Railway Museum in a replica structure. This was the second substation that was built on the property. Originally we were using a portable rotary substation from the Sacramento Northern on a boxcar to power the trains. And the Del Paso substation was the very first substantial substation that we built, and it's still our main substation that we use. so we are now in Car Barn 3. This barn was finished in 2008 and is our newest storage facility on the property. This barn is 6 tracks wide. We store most of our premium pieces of equipment here. If you can see right here, those 2 Pullman heavyweights there are one of our most important artifacts. And this is only open for guided tours under normal circumstances. It is open today because we are here at a special event at the museum. This is Western Pacific Steam Locomotive number 94. This is the only steam engine that we have on public display at the moment. And this was built in 1909 by Alco Brooks. This locomotive was the last steam engine to see service on the Western Pacific Railroad, with its last run being on August 22nd of 1960 on point of the California Zephyr. When WP Steam ended in 1953, they kept the 94 because the 94 was a very important engine in the railroad's history. This pulled the first passenger train on the WP as far as Oroville back in November of 1909. This was part of the collection of the Pacific Coast Chapter Railway and Locomotive Historical Society for a time, and then our organization acquired this engine in 1979 and ran it until 1986. And now the engine is cosmetically restored and is stored inside nice and safe. From a historical standpoint, as far as locomotives are concerned, this is the single most important artifact as far as the history of the Western Pacific Railroad is concerned, because this engine literally was there when the railroad was completed. This is our F.N. Smith Memorial Library and Archive Facility. This is where all of our paper documents, all of our photos, and everything is all kept here at the museum. The entire history of the museum, the history of the Sacramento Northern, the history of the Key System, Southern Pacific, Western Pacific, California Short Lines, it's all here. If you are a member and you can join the museum, you have access to check out every single book that's available on these shelves. Speaking for myself as an archivist, I am very proud of what we do here, and I am very supportive of everything that we do here in this archive facility, and I hope we can keep expanding and keep growing. It's really been a pleasure working in this facility.
Well, Hunter, thank you so much for the tour of WRM. This was fantastic.
You're very welcome, Greg. And to anyone who is looking to come to this museum, we would be happy to have you here, and make sure you plan a trip out to Rio Vista Junction soon. We are open every weekend, and then during the summer months, Wednesday through Sunday.
Didn't you used to call them the Car Street Place?
You know, yes. As a matter of fact, our family used to refer to what's now the Western Railway Museum as the Car Street Place. So, let me give you an idea of how long our family
okay.
has been going to Rio Vista. This is me in the cab of 334. This is my twin brother and I with my dad on the Juice Jack. This is the early 70s. So the reason we called it the Car Street Place is because we started going there. Well, of course, my dad was going there before we were even born. And when we were toddlers, every once in a while, he would ask the kids, where would you like to go this weekend? And by that, he meant what railroad venue around the Bay Area would you like to go visit? Yeah. And when we were little kids, we got the term streetcar mixed up. We couldn't get it right. We just got it backwards. So instead of saying, well, we want to go to the streetcar place, we would say, we want to go to the Car Street Place. And so, you know, for the last 40 plus years in the Robinson family, that's been the Car Street Place. We had another nickname that we used all the time. And sometimes on other weekends, we would tell him we wanted to go to the train on the hill. And I'm going to let our viewers Try to guess what the train on the hill might have been to the Robinson family. And if you can guess correctly what the train on the hill in the Bay Area might be, send me an email, greg@rrshowcase.com, and if you get it right, we will give you four months of Gold Spike membership. So send us an email. What's the train on the hill?
The UP STEAM program has announced the Big Boy is, quote, nearly complete. Their January 29th update outlines the assembling of the boiler and rear engine with the front engine. The accompanying YouTube video shows many of the assemblies that can only be seen when the engine is apart. The major assemblies are together, but there's still a huge amount of work to be done.
I'm here to tell you we've made some really fabulous progress over the last 45 days. So walk with me as we talk about all of these major milestones and the significant progress we've made reassembling the locomotive.
At the end of the announcement, Mr. Dickens said, "The tests are confirming the solid conditions of our workmanship."
It's reefer madness with the Feather River Rail Society. Private owners in San Jose, California, have offered to donate a fairly rare wooden Pacific Fruit Express reefer. Funds are needed to move the car, and a GoFundMe campaign has been created. So far, about $1,000 of the $12,000 goal has been raised. The promotional video for the project has a nice short history of PFE with plenty of vintage images. The link can be found down below. Restoration of the car won't happen at the museum's Portola facility, but rather in the Southern Bay Area closer to many of the members. A teachers' union in the Mexican state of Michoacan has been blockading the railroads. Bloomberg, U.S. News, and Mexican News Daily all report that the blockade lasted for more than 2 weeks in the second half of January. It cost industry billions of pesos and threatened to result in shortages of corn and wheat flour. Noti Video reports that in 2015, teachers' salaries were cut in half. Beginning in January of this year, teachers were working without pay whatsoever and with no promise of when they could expect their paychecks. The teachers recently agreed to lift the blockade, but will continue their protest at government buildings and other locations. Progress Rail /EMD/Caterpillar has delivered the first 10 of its 20-unit order to the Tunisian National Railway Company. The GT42 ACs were built in Progress Rail's Muncie, Indiana facility. YouTuber Coleman Place caught the shipment eastbound in Suffolk, Virginia in early December. Progress expects to deliver the second half of the order in 2019.
After having closed in 2017 for needing extensive repairs, the Broadmoor-Pikes Peak Cog Railroad was uncertain of its future. Now, however, we know that it will be coming back. The company just placed a large equipment order for their reconstruction. Stadler Busnang AG is a Swiss company, one of 2 in the world who specialize in cog railroad equipment. 3 new engines, 9 passenger cars, cog rail, and snow removal systems were part of the order, and it's expected to take around 3 years to custom build it all. A spokeswoman for Stadler said, "A delivery schedule has not been set yet because the specifics of the order were still being worked out." So we're all used to just flushing and not giving a second thought about where it all goes. We have these great waste systems in place that gives us the comfort of not needing to think about that. Even a city as big as New York doesn't give a second thought to it. Last year, however, the small town of Parrish, Alabama, gave a great deal of thought to New York City's waste.
For the last few weeks, something in this small Alabama town smelled bad. Really bad.
I came out on my back porch to have my coffee, and I had to go right back into my house. because the smell took your breath away.
Can you describe the smell?
Smelled like a dead horse.
We call it poop train. I mean, there's just no way around it. I mean, that's just what it is.
The cargo was destined for Big Sky Environmental, a landfill west of Birmingham in a town called Adamsville. But West Jefferson, the town where the materials would be offloaded to trucks for delivery, won an injunction against the company, and Big Sky was forced to use another location.
You know, it wasn't right for them to have just dumped all of their problems on Alabama.
You know, it's just like New York City to expect everyone just to take their crap, though.
You know, yeah, it was a shame that they couldn't get a movement on that train.
So we all know that it's very cold in the Midwest right now. Very, very cold. So cold that if the tracks were just left, it could actually cause damage to the rail and issues with the operation of the switches.
So they're not actually just setting the rail on fire. These are built-in heaters, right?
Right. They have them built in and they're gas powered and they go along and they light them. They're not actually burning the rail and the ties.
For my first favorite find, I want to draw everyone's attention to TSG Multimedia and their YouTube channel. John Abatacola is the main man behind TSG, and his experience in the world of video production really shows. Their videos aren't just locked tripod run-by pieces.
To eastern Nevada. They began in 1905 in the worst winter since the Donner Party. Had to pull off and...
They have great visuals, excellent audio, and real storytelling.
Massive steam shovels would load the copper-rich material straight into open hoppers. The hoppers were ferried around the pit by small steam engines, often called dinkies.
TSG also has a number of informative series on model railroading.
Digital command control has revolutionized model railroading, opening up a new world of realistic train operation, lighting, and sound. Though its benefits are many, one of the trade-offs when using DCC is that each locomotive has to be equipped with...
You can find them on Facebook and YouTube by searching for TSG Multimedia, or you can go to their website, tsgmultimedia.com. And the last favorite find for this week is an amazing short film by Russell and Annie Bush. It's called The Railroader. This title makes it seem like it could be an interview piece about just one man, the president of the Cumbres and Toltec. But it's really a look at the railroad, at the history, even at the landscape.
A scant 11 years later, there was a railroad here in Chamonix, Mexico. Now the rest of the world has moved on, but here, as far as the eye can see in any direction, it is the authentic West. For me, this place is who I am. I suppose for each of us, there are sounds and smells and the feel of the air that get to your core, that tell you you're alive, that tell you this is how the world is supposed to feel. For me, this is that place. We have people here, a young guy here, who is a fifth-generation railroader. His parents worked for the railroad. His grandparents worked for the railroad. Their parents worked for the railroad. And their parents worked for the railroad. So we have one family who's continuously had somebody working for this railroad since 1890. To be here and watch the sunrise is glorious. To watch the alpenglow when the sun sets is glorious. As N. Scott Momaday said, the West must be seen to be believed, but it must be believed to be seen. A place largely made of our imagination. And this is a place where your imagination can run free.
So this piece was just about 10 minutes long, and the fact that it's being distributed by National Geographic is a plus for the railroad community. The link to it is right here, or you can go to the show notes where you can click on the link and watch the whole thing itself.
It really was superbly done. So that's it for episode 5. Thanks again, you guys, for joining us. We hope you're having as much fun as we are.
We really, really appreciate you Gold and Silver Spike members. Your support is going to make all the difference.
Look forward to seeing you next week.
And remember, keep your hand on the throttle and your eye on the rail.